Okay, well, okay, welcome. And so, yeah, so I'm Jared with Pillar to Post. I've been doing inspections since 2006, so I have seen lots of homes. When people ask me what I do for a living, I tell them I go sneak around people's houses and snoop in their closets and into their cupboards and learn all about them. But that's what we do. My team, I have three inspectors. We cover pretty much Layton to Manti. Um, Mostly Utah County, but we're all over the place. And we do a lot of inspections. We're going to talk about new construction inspections today and some of the issues, because that question often comes up, like, why would I want to get an inspection on a brand new house? And so you're going to be able to answer that with your clients after today. Just some other things about us. We do all the other services that your clients might need. So sewer scopes, radon tests, meth tests, termites, mold, air quality, all kinds of stuff that your clients might want. Just as agents who've been doing this for a while, one thing to give you a little bit of perspective, just as we talk about shifts and changes in the market, one thing that I have noticed this last year that is very different than what I've seen in the last almost 18 years is the shift for home buyers to now want more information. So, for example, for a long time, pretty much it was pretty standard. About 10% of our business was all the additional services, radon test, a mold test, termite. This last year, kind of since the pandemic, it's so slowly been growing. It's now about 30%. So, yes, your home inspection. How much is a home inspection? Well, $400, $500, $600. But most people are spending $700 to $1,100. We have, my guys are out on inspection right now. $1,900. It's a 3,000 square foot, built in the 70s, but the client wants mold testing and radon and all the other services. And so that, again, it's and nothing's changed on our end. We don't sell anything when we're scheduling. We just say, we send them a quote and say, here's some other services, and they come back and say, yep, and they tick all these boxes. Yep, we want all these things. So it's not like anything's changed. It's just the buyer, the consumer has changed. My opinion is I'm spending twice as much now than I would have 5 years ago. So I'm going to invest a little bit more to get some of the information. So again, it's more just kind of a shift that as you're working with your agents, helping them understand and kind of what we're seeing on my side of things. So inspections and new construction. So we are going to go along. We're going to talk about what to expect with new homes, the good, the bad, the ugly. The first half of this class is really, we're just going to run through a lot of things that in the last 20 years. So big differences and changes in just construction and components of a home built in the last 20 years versus previous. I like to say, where a lot of this would come in is you have a lot of people that are downsizing. So I think of like my parents, my in-laws. They've been in their home for 20, 30 years, and now they're downsizing, and now they're going and looking at these newer, smaller homes. And I always picture my father-in-law like, what is this crap? Why are they building it this way? Because he has his custom home that he's had for 40 years. And so we're going to talk about some of that stuff, kind of with that client in mind. Then we're going to get into more of, okay, what are the other issues and why, and more of that initial question of why an inspection makes sense on new construction. So,
is your father-in-law allergic to cookie cutter?
He's allergic to anything that seems inferior to his standards, which
are extremely high.
Yeah. So, yeah, it took me a while to get his daughter so that.
Yeah, I like to.
There's a while.
Go get his daughter.
So, so these are the things we're going to talk a little bit about. Engineered wood and just how that's changed things over the last several decades. We're going to talk about plumbing, some electrical, and some HVAC. So we're just going to hit on a lot. We could spend hours talking about all kinds of stuff, but we're just going to hit some of these that are, again, from my perspective, what are the questions that I'm usually hearing on the inspection side that clients are asking us so that you can have a little bit of that information to, again, I say this with all of my classes. One of the main goals of teaching these classes, there's two main ones. One is so that you have a resource when you have the question and you don't have the answer. You can say to your client, yeah, it's a great question. I don't know the answer, but I know a guy who does. And you reach out to me. The other one is hopefully to give you more of those answers so you can just look that much better to your clients, impress them with your knowledge. And so, right, engineered wood is one of the biggest changes that you're going to see over the last 30 years. So think of if you were to kind of categorize your homes built in the 50s compared to your homes built in the 2000s, what are some of the main things that come to mind? You guys are out showing homes. You walk into a home and you say, okay, a home was built in 2000 or the home was built in the 50s. When you think of a home that's built in the 50s, what's one of the biggest thing like downsides?
Smaller.
Smaller. Okay. Yeah.
There's usually not a bathroom en suite in the master bedroom.
Okay. So, and that's really kind of, that was the answer I was looking for is the spacing. And a lot of that is engineered wood is what made that change. Now we have trusses and we have joists and engineered wood, where before that it was 2x12s. You know, you can only get so long on a 2x12, and that was one of the other challenges with, it's called dimensional lumber, 2x12, you know, where it was just cut wood. You were limited because you were not guaranteed that this tree was going to be as strong as this tree. And so engineering had to go to the least common denominator, and we had to build to be safe. But as soon as they started doing engineered wood, you know, so there's your dimensional lumber, and then you start getting engineered wood. Now they can build it to specific requirements, and now we have these longer spans. We can build these huge overarching higher ceilings, all of these things. So again, that is something that is really has really changed.
Are they connected, or is that one big one?
That is one huge long one. So you could have a 30-foot span and have that big open space, where you're never going to get a 30-foot 2x12 to do that. So they would have to break it up. So maybe you'd have a big long open room upstairs, but downstairs you're going to have all these little rooms. Right. But now we don't have to do that with engineered wood. Right. All right, this is the, for those online, those of you here in person, don't need to worry about it, but that's our first keyword. So write that down to put it into the form when you're done so you can get credit. So these are some different types of engineered lumber. We're starting to see it just in so many different applications. What's the big deal? Kind of jump through some of this so we can get into more of the fun stuff. One of the biggest things, so again, thinking about parents' generation, one of the big complaints that you sometimes hear with this is the floor feels bouncy. It just doesn't feel as solid as my other house. And the fact of the matter is it's called deflection. So how much flex there is in that span hasn't changed. It's still the same. But if the deflection, which is between 3/8 and 1/2 of an inch per 15 feet, if you double that, now you've got 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch, and you're out in the middle of a 30-foot room, you could probably feel that. And that's what, again, so when someone's coming through and saying, wow, this just doesn't feel solid like my house, well, there's a few things. One is your house probably doesn't have the same span. And number two, the other thing that people need to consider is when you're looking at a new house that's empty, as soon as you load that piano and the furniture and all that stuff, it's going to cause a little bit of that deflection, and you're not going to have that and feel that as much.
Is that why it squeaks?
The squeaks will, and then that can also compound it. The squeaks are going to be because there is going to be that flex. But then the squeaks also happen. This is kind of another phenomenon that you run into, and you're going to find it on any vacant home, is your average family will put off several gallons of water every day, just through breathing, bathing, cooking. And when a home sits vacant, things start to dry out. So the nails no longer grab. So if they missed and the nails just missing and not grabbing on anything, that will cause a squeak. But in vacant homes, you're always going to have more squeaks, especially in the wintertime, because the wintertime is drier. So a vacant home in the wintertime, oh, wow, these floors are really squeaky. Great, move in, install a whole house humidifier, and most of those squeaks are going to go away. So again, I don't want to dive in and get too into the details, but the whole thing with engineered lumber, I guess one thing that just to be aware of is engineered lumber when it comes to new construction, as home inspectors, we're a lot more critical of what seems like might be insignificant. Wow, there's this little ding in this board. Who cares? You know, it's going to get covered up with drywall. Well, with engineered lumber, for example, this is a typical joist. You can cut all kinds of holes out of this. It's designed that you can run your plumbing and all kinds of stuff through there. But if any part of that top part of that bottom part gets damaged, technically you need an engineer to review it and see if it needs to be repaired. So little minor things, and when we get down into, we'll start going through pictures and stuff, you'll see some of these little things like, wow, that doesn't seem that big of a deal. They can actually be a bigger deal.
Because it's framed with wood to bolster it.
Well, yeah, and because it's designed that as long as it's this, it will support this. Well, as soon as you make a little cut in there, it's no longer what was originally engineered. So now someone has to go and look at it and make sure it's not going to cause any problems. I don't have a picture, but like trusses that you'll see when they're building the roof system, those are engineered specifically. We did a brand new house a few months ago, and sometimes they get damaged. Well, when they get damaged, you have to have an engineer review the plans and make sure that the repairs, you can't just like, oh, let's just put it back together. And so it was actually, anyway, it turned into this big problem because we said, well, it's damaged. And the builder said, oh, no, but we had an engineer review it. And we looked at the engineer's review, and they had only reviewed one of the damaged trusses, but there were 10 of them. So they actually had to have the engineering company, the manufacturer of the truss company, come back out. They had to do a whole new site plan. They had to, so it becomes a big issue. Did it get fixed? Yes, but it was worth it. And again, coming back to that question we're going to deal with, it was worth it because the builder was on site. The builder was responsible. Had they not done anything, they go to sell the house 3 years from now. Now it's their problem trying to go back to the bill. Yeah, that's so. Anyway, we'll talk more about it. Oh, no, they had to do major re-engineering to repair them.
Major re-engineering.
So the thing is, when you...
what did they do to them?
Well, so like if you look at those trusses, they have those big metal brackets that are kind of holding all the joints together.
Right.
Those are installed with hydraulic presses with a tremendous amount of force. And just breaking one of those, so we damaged a truss one time on an inspection. So it was on us to repair it. So we had an engineer come out. And it was, okay, you can get a piece of plywood. It needs to be 2 feet by 2 feet. You need to have, and it was like, I think we ended up between just these two joints that were damaged, we had to use like 48 structural screws to hold it all together. And the screws had to be a certain, I mean, it was, the engineer has to get very specific to make sure it's going to meet those new requirements.
How did you damage it?
One of my guys was inspecting the attic, and it was cracked, and he didn't see the crack and stepped on it, and it cracked it the rest of the way. So that unfortunately falls on us. We fell on him through the bathroom down into the floor below. So
he really did.
Yeah.
Did he break it?
No, just got pretty bruised up. But yeah, luckily he was all right.
So a jaw hazard.
Yeah, definitely. We don't walk through attics too much anymore. We learned that. Yeah. Well, we learned that, you know, in working with our insurance, they're like, yeah, you're actually not covered because you're not supposed to be doing that. Well, how are we supposed to do that? Well, you should have seen the crack. Well, we didn't see the crack. Well, then you shouldn't be able to go somewhere where you can't really see. It was kind of this big thing where it's like, well, luckily it wasn't too bad. One of my other inspectors used to be a drywaller, so we got most of the repairs done, and
sheesh,
it was fun. Okay, we're going to talk about plumbing. Plumbing has gone through a number of evolutions. You know, up till the 60s, you had galvanized plumbing. After galvanized, copper became popular. And then we started getting into plastics. So again, you take that demographic, that client who was kind of around the era, 70s or 80s, when plastic plumbing first came out. Polybutylene was one of the first generations of plastic plumbing. And if you go start Googling that, there were major class action lawsuits, lots of problems. Some parts of the country, it was really bad. We run into it all the time. And it's kind of one of those things, like if it hasn't had problems by now, you're probably okay.
Was it back east?
Back east had a lot of problems.
The moisture?
It was more just how it was installed. And since Utah tends to always be late to the game for everything, we didn't we didn't get there was a lot of lessons learned when it first came out with how it was installed, how the joints were connected. So again, the plastic plumbing, sometimes you have some biases. Well, I want copper. I don't want this plastic plumbing, and I don't want. We're now on multiple generations later. We're no longer using polybutylene. We use PEX, which is kind of the more standard. So again, when it comes to new construction, one of the topics that always comes up is the manifold. Does anyone know what a manifold is? I don't think I have a picture, but you'll see it's usually this big black thing, and it's got all these blue and red pipes coming out of it. So it's a big distribution hub for plumbing. Those actually came about because of polybutylene. The problem with polybutylene was there were where the joints were. So when you did galvanized or did copper, you'd have a line that would go to the bathroom, and then it would branch off and go to the toilet, to the tub, and to the sink. Well, each one of those joints became a problem with that first generation plastic plumbing. And so they said, well, we need to avoid the joints. So they made the manifold, the distribution, where there was now a line from that manifold to the toilet, to the sink. So there was no joints anywhere. And so that's kind of where that evolved. And there are some other benefits of the manifold. I get questions all the time where, hey, the house doesn't have a manifold. Is that bad or is that good? So in my opinion, this is my opinion, I think the manifold is a plus, but it doesn't mean that it was an inferior plumber if they don't have a manifold. This is just my thinking through things.
Why is it a plus?
So the plus for a manifold is you get more even distribution of plumbing. So if you have one line going, you've probably been in homes where if you're taking a shower and someone flushes the toilet, you lose pressure, you lose temperature. That is much less likely going to happen with a manifold system because everything has its own dedicated line. Another real big benefit is if you have that teenager that will not get out of the shower, you can turn off each individual line. So that hot water to that bathroom shower, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I guess you used up all the hot water. So this is what I see because I'll do one subdivision, but they had two different plumbers, and the houses on this side of the street had manifold. This one's don't. Well, and a lot of it comes down to just the plumber. And if you think about it, the manifold system is much cheaper labor, more expensive on components. Where if you are running and doing joints, which are now very reliable, you need more skilled labor. So kind of look at your plumbing company and your labor force, and if they're highly skilled, I'm gonna not do a manifold. It doesn't make sense profit-wise. Where if I have a bunch of cheap guys, hey, I need you to run this pipe from there to there, doesn't take any skill. I have cheap labor. I'm gonna do more of a manifold. So that's kind of when people are like, well, does it mean it's less quality because that builder always does manifold? No, it's just what the plumber felt like. So plastic pipes. Again, people always ask, well, what's the lifespan of this new PEX? I don't know.
How do you spell that?
PEX, P-E-X, and it stands for polyethylene, some big long word, and so everybody abbreviates it as PEX.
Okay. And you like it?
Yeah, it works great. They've been using it in Europe longer than they have in the US. What's its lifespan? I guess we'll find out. Who knows? Depends on who you talk to. It is a lot cheaper to run than copper. It does not require nearly the technical skills to run like copper. I don't know, if I were doing my house and costs weren't an issue and time weren't an issue, I'd probably still do PEX.
You wouldn't do copper?
I probably wouldn't do copper.
Why not?
Just because if I decide to change something, copper is just such a pain. PEX is so easy just to cut it and splice it. And copper is just, yeah.
Because you have to solder it.
You have to solder it. You have to dry it out. You can't just.
And you have to be highly skilled.
Yeah, yeah. You unfortunately you don't need a whole lot of skills to run PEX.
I know.
You do need a little bit, but.
I can't believe you're saying this.
Okay, plumbing. There is one thing I haven't put a slide in here, but I do want to talk about plumbing because it's something that always comes up. Another big shift that we're seeing is tankless water heaters. So let me just give you my little spiel on tankless water heaters, which I will admit I am extremely biased. My my house that I grew up in, my dad is a builder up in Montana, and the house that we moved into back in 1980 or so, he built the house and we had a tankless water heater. This was early technology for tankless water heaters. It was a nightmare. So I'm already telling you, I'm a little biased. And newer models have a lot more technology built into them. But one of the problems, a tankless water heater just has a huge burner. And as the water flows through it, it heats it up to the temperature you need. So my experience growing up was I get in the shower first thing in the morning and someone flushes the toilet into the bathroom. Well, that just called more water this way, which meant less water pressure going through, and I just got scalded. Or someone else needed hot water. Well, now that would pull hot water that way, and I just got frozen. And so it was a constant battle whenever we wanted to go take a shower to shout throughout the house, I'm taking a shower. No one use any water. Yeah, and so I'm a little jaded from my childhood, but that is one of the limitations with the tankless water heater is if it's not sized properly for the home, you will have some capacity issues. So not going to be a problem on most of your 3-4 bedroom homes, 2-3 bathrooms, but you start getting beyond that, you either need multiple water heaters or they might have other restrictions and other things to. Most of them are smart enough now that they can regulate the flow, so you're not dealing with all those temperature fluctuations.
That's for you for your child.
It's yeah, tankless water heaters were really bad.
So it's filled up, and then you have a.
There's no tank.
No, I mean the one you like.
Oh, so I just the old fashioned, just regular water heater.
Because it has a reserve.
Yeah, the reserve.
They pull
that. Yep.
And then the different systems in the house don't.
Then once it's gone, then you just got to wait for it to reheat up. So one of the big selling features, this is kind of, I guess my other thing is I'm a little, they're so much more energy efficient. And that's kind of not true. So really the only difference between a tankless and a tank water heater, because it still takes the same amount of energy to heat up a gallon of water. Mm-hmm. The difference is with a tank, you're heating it up and then you're keeping it hot for a long period of time. That's the energy that gets wasted compared to a tankless water heater. So most of the studies show that if you use less than 50 gallons a day, you're going to see an improvement in energy efficiency. If you have kids, if you are doing more than one load of laundry or a load of dishes in a day, you're probably going to be using more than 50 gallons. You will not see the energy efficiency. Grandma that, maybe does a load of dishes every, 3 times a week and maybe a load of laundry once a week and maybe is taking 1 shower a day. Yes, huge energy efficiency because she is not storing a bunch of hot water all those days. Most families are not going to see it. They did a big study and found that they took this whole neighborhood and they replaced everybody with a tankless water heater because they wanted to show how much more energy efficient this whole community could save. They went back after a while and they found out that they had consumed more energy than before because when you have a tank water heater, you have a self-limiter. It's like, oh, we ran out of hot water. Once they had these tankless water heaters, the whole neighborhood was like taking endless showers. It was like, oh, we have endless supply. So that's the other thing too, is there's that perception that people, you think you're saving. The other biggest downside, and I know I'm totally negative on all these things, they're a great product as long as you just understand what you're getting into. We have really hard water here in Utah. Some manufacturers, the warranty is void if you do not have a water softener for a tankless water heater. Some of them will allow you to have the warranty as long as you can prove maintenance, which is a flushing to flush out any water scale that happens every year to 2 years. So yes, I'm going to save a few $100s a year on energy because it's energy efficient, but I now need to go pay a plumber. There are ways you can do it yourself. It's not that complicated, but if you're going to be on top of it. So again, it's just one of those things where it's a great system, but make sure you know what you're getting into.
The average American family uses 300 gallons of water. So like a day? 50 gallons, like
of hot water.
Really
yeah. So it's really when they say, yeah, this tankless water heater could save you, 40% in energy costs. Yeah, if you're grandma. That's
my big thing, we all have our childhood things, right? Is how the ones, the tanks,
Yes.
like they have the TV tank little leaves, and then it goes in behind the wall into the bedroom closet, and then you're walking on wet carpet a month later, so I don't know, do we know if they leak, and if they do, they're not gonna need the same amount of water, because they're not storing.
but you're still under the same pressure amount. So I think if there could be a leak, I'm just trying to think. I see thousands of water heaters. Yeah. Sure.
So my dad owns a plumbing HVAC company, worked for him for many, many years. Both of them leak. The difference is that a tankless water heater probably doesn't pose the same risk as a total failure of regular water heater.
Good point.
Those can explode. Those can put a ton of water out there, and there's no stopping it. You will probably see the water coming from the tankless water heater in smaller amounts.
Yeah,
leading up to it. So they both leak. And in that regard, I think that is one. To me, that is actually one of the selling features of a tankless.
So yeah, so again, not all the negative. Positive, they are significantly smaller. So that's where we're seeing a lot of these. Yeah, a lot less room, a lot less space. Another safety benefit, you can actually program the temperature. You can adjust the temperature a little bit easier than some little knob that depends on how much you used. That's the thing with a water heater, a tank. Yeah, you can set it at 140 degrees, but after it's half full, where you're mixing cold water, it's not regulated. So
you don't have to light it.
No, and a lot of the newer tank ones though are now self-igniting as well.
So, were you in the basement growing up?
Absolutely.
That's
It's more usually it's like how many bathrooms, and then it depends too on the size, because it's the BTU capacity of the burner. Usually where I'll see two, I don't see two very often. Usually I'll just see one big one. And what it will do is it will just start to restrict flow. So if enough people are using it, wow, I just lost pressure. You'll still have hot water. It just really drives it down. And so what I'll see plumbers do so that they don't get the call is they'll put low flow shower heads, and so the perception that you're getting better pressure and everything, which is a smart water conservation thing to do anyway, but that also helps.
There's two different valves, check valves that you can put in systems as well. One is based off of pressure, which is what everybody normally has. And there are electronic ones that adjust it based on temperature. So a lot of times if you have a really big house with a lot of usage, you can put the electronic one. And if it senses the temperature is dropping from your desired temperature because too much water is being used, it will restrict flow so that you continue to get the same temperature so that you don't get the Jared cold shower.
That was the technology that wasn't around 35, 40 years ago. So
I'm finding more.
Yep. Yeah, a lot more. I mean, yeah, to the point where 3 years ago, it was like maybe I'd see a tankless water heater like once every 2 months. Now it's, every other day we're seeing tankless.
Are they cheaper to install?
No, and that's another thing too, is the kind of selling feature. And again, why I say you got to know what you're getting into. They're more expensive, but they should last longer if you maintain them properly. So cost-wise, in the long run, we're talking in the 10 to 20-year range. They're probably similar. In reality, I would say, because I see how well people maintain their homes, in reality, I think in general, they're costing people.
Yeah.
Like, we have a smart thermostat. And someone to help you program that.
Yes.
Just water heater. Like, I just think you're doing that.
Yeah.
Selling
waiting to get the fire.
Yeah.
Okay. Electrical, I don't want to spend too much time into this. GFCI, you guys all know what a GFCI, they're in your bathrooms, they're little outlets that have to test. An AFCI is is a similar safety device where this one prevents electrocution, this one prevents fires. And so it detects any arcing that could start a home fire and it would trip the breaker. The main thing I want to point out about this is that these started being required in new homes in 2006. In 2017 or 18, Utah said, we aren't going to require these anymore. So Utah is one of the few states that we do not require AFCI breakers. And yeah, we can get in a whole debate on that one. But so where that's come up is sometimes you're going to have a builder or a home buyer that's probably a little more technical than most, and they bring up, and how come this doesn't have AFCIs and what? Anyway, just tuck that away of, okay, there's something that Jared said, something about AFCIs and breakers that Utah is a little more unique. That's all you need to remember. Tuck that away, and then you can reach out to me if that question ever happens. Yeah, 1718 is and it's, yeah, I say 1718 because they passed the law, but if your house got its permits before it was passed, you know, the house might still not have been completed until 2018, even though it was not. But this is basically, it's a breaker. If you were to, you know, here's an example that could start a fire behind the wall. It would detect that. And
is it a ton of money to install?
The reason why, here's the argument for Utah, because the lobbyists, the Home Builders Association, is very influential with lawmakers here in Utah. Basically, this is like $20 compared to its alternate regular breaker might be $3, so 10 times the cost. And basically, in theory, this is great. There is no studies that really show that this is actually doing or improving and reducing home fires. So that was kind of the argument that the home builder said is, look, we're costing homeowners this much more money to do something that we have no evidence it's actually doing. Let's take it out of the code, and that's what happened.
We did home inspection. We were able to detect that the
GFCI
completely like messed up. Like the top part of the house, the GFCI was controlling the bottom. So every time that would go, does that make sense? Like they would have to go all the way to the top. So if you go into the inspection, you would know.
So technically that's allowed. It's a cheap way that builders can get around, because as long as,
you know, like, haven't seen it. Are they trying to get away?
No, and there is long. So it's as long as, and a lot of electricians, it's more work to kind of think through it. But now they're like, wow, I can just hook, because everyone, you know, usually it's like, okay, this circuit does this level, this circuit, but if we do this circuit does all the bathrooms, then we can do one GFCI and save a little bit of money. And
yeah,
and so it's
now makes sense. You're saying this.
Yeah, it's
trying to get away with it. I'm like,
yeah. So the code is more just says, hey, every bathroom needs to be protected by a GFCI, and you can only have so many outlets on a circuit. Well, we're going to make this circuit and just cut, you know, and so then they can get around it. And I mean, if you're doing 100 homes and you save $20 on every home, with maybe just another 10 feet of extra wire, you know, now that's, oh, let's do it that way.
Is it super expensive to install an AFCI after the fact?
No, because it's just swapping the breakers. So they can be installed after the fact pretty easily. All right. Efficient air conditioning. Again, we can get into a bunch, and yeah, Drew, you can chime in on some of this too. I mostly just want to say, here's what the biggest things between new homes and old homes that I'm seeing. And one of the biggest things is the size of the AC unit. You can have an AC unit that's this big and one that's this big, and size does not always equate to energy efficiency. And so that's where I always hear with, especially builders are usually just putting in your contractor grade appliances. Most of these clients, going back to this demographic that I've started out with, they've been in their home. They kind of, you know, when something needs replaced, we're going to replace it with something good. So that's the scenario is, I just replaced my AC unit and it was this big. And look at this little teeny piece of crap that this builder put in. Well, that little teeny thing might actually be more energy efficient than your big one. You know that. So again, just air conditioners use a seasonal energy efficiency ratio. So a way to kind of say how energy efficient they are. 14.5 SEER, and there's even a new requirement. Anyway, this isn't even something that most home inspectors are going to get into of how energy efficient your AC. We're not even going to get into that. We'll try to tell you how big it is. Is it a 3-ton? Is it a 4-ton?
Is big enough for the house.
So, and even that is a huge. Yes.
There's a lot that goes into that.
So, I know. So here's the thing with air conditioning units is you can. I remember doing an inspection. They hired a company to come out, and he was there almost as long as I was doing the inspection to put it all into this huge program to really figure out what is the optimal air conditioning and furnace size. And he was telling me, okay, we've got to measure all the windows. Okay, we have this many square feet of windows facing west and this many facing north. And okay, and they plug that all into the program. Okay, these are 6-inch walls with R22. Okay, and all the walls insulation and all the roof and and everything goes in, and it says, okay, you should get a 3.5-ton air conditioner. Great, we're gonna put a 4 in. Like what? Well, because that's the most energy efficient, which means in the year round, that's going to be the best one. But guess what's going to happen in July? It's not going to perform. So you can go through all of this stuff to get the most energy efficient, but do you want comfort or do you want energy efficiency? You can't have them both, unfortunately. In our crazy Utah climate, if it's the most energy efficient, it's probably not going to perform in that week when we have the week stretch and triple-digit weather. So is that?
They're like basic guidelines. There's no number of vents, square footage, and depth size.
Yeah.
You can guesstimate and be pretty close, but like Jared said, if you want to actually know it, there's programs just built for that, and you put a bunch of stuff in there.
And still, it's not gonna. So yeah. So here's one thing that we often run into is, and it's a good question to ask the builder: is the HVAC sized for the finished square footage or total square footage? Because we've been running into that a lot. They will throw in, and it's like, wow, this is a 3,000 square foot house, but only 1,500 square foot finished. This is like an HVAC system that I usually see in a little single level condo. Oh yeah, because and there's no ducting into the basement. And that's kind of another red flag. If you don't see any registers coming into the unfinished basement, there's a good chance that, oh yeah, we're gonna go finish the basement. Okay, well, plan on a new HVAC because this one's probably not big enough. So that's right. Right.
I don't know, maybe that's a little, that.
Yeah, well, and if it is 3 levels, that is better. Have one for the upstairs and then another one for the main levels. And then, yeah, then I'd be, but when it's one, especially and there's 3 levels and I see one system, it's like, yeah. We get that question all the time though. It's like, hey, because we'll see all the time a home that doesn't have any AC for the basement. And it's like, well, yeah, because basements are cooler. Well, and that's the other thing is my wife likes the thermostat at like 69 all summer long. And
what do you like it?
I'm not home enough. As long as it's cool at night, I don't care what it is during the day. I like to sleep in the cool. Yeah, you should have a thermostat for everyone.
Yeah, because you don't want the same for the basement.
There's sometimes.
Right. Yep. You can have a zone system. And that's another way that sometimes you'll see is maybe there is one system, but they have it zoned. And what that means is you can have a smaller system but then it will segregate and say, okay, right now I'm just going to heat the upstairs. And so the only time that becomes it can be more efficient. Again, you're kind of working a little bit harder. It might have a little bit shorter life, but when you go to replace it, it's going to be cheaper to replace a smaller one than a bigger one. So there, yeah. People always
like those vents, different vents in the summer, different vents up in the winter, and so.
And that will balance it. But then you talk to an HVAC guy, they'll be, oh, you're restricting airflow. That's going to make it work harder. And so here's people always say, well, what system do you like the best? To me, the best advice is when it comes to how and what you need to be doing with the HVAC is have a good relationship with a good HVAC tech. That's, as real estate agents, that's my advice, because it's going to go a lot longer than saying, oh, I need to have a Carrier system or I need to have Lennox. Just have a good guy that can get out
Well, you're
and help you.
freaking me out because you're saying there's different people for the same builder.
Yeah, well, especially big subdivisions, they might have 3 or 4 subs.
And they'll do it differently.
And that's what we're going to talk about. Hold off till the next part. High efficiency furnaces. Okay, this is another thing builders will often offer. Well, for this much, we can give you a high efficiency furnace instead of the standard conventional furnace, or mid efficiency. For most people, that's probably not worth the money. For most of your buyers, it's not worth it. And if you want to just do the math and run through it, on average, this little townhouse, maybe your gas bill for the whole year is going to average $60 a month. Okay. You're only looking at a difference of 10 to maybe 15% energy efficiency. So great. You're going to save $6 to $8 every month. And the builder wants to charge you $1,500 for this new furnace that's going to save you $6 to $8 a month. Are you going to be in the house long enough to even see that payoff? It doesn't make sense we're talking new construction, in many cases if the builder's offering it, great. And a lot of them are going to be doing that. But to go and pay a bunch of money as an upgrade to get a high efficiency furnace, I don't think it's worth it. Most people aren't going to be in the home long enough to see a return. Agreed.
Huh.
Okay, how are we on time? Oh man. Okay, problem areas. Okay, this is what we want to get into. Why would I get an inspection on a new home? I've kind of already touched on some of these things.
You just told us.
Well, number one, it's brand new. Well, no home is perfect. Everybody already knows that. But with new homes, that's even more so. And here's my analogy. Oh, sorry. Oh, wow. I'm like, what does that have to do with
Online people.
Second word, online people. Look real quick. Okay, think of the concept of a prototype. You're in the market to go buy a new car. You go to the dealership. Great, there's my Ford Excursion. I'm going to buy this Ford Excursion, and the dealer says, "Hey, here's this car over here, the only one of its kind. It's this new prototype that Ford just came out. It's the only one. It's the same price. In fact, it's a little bit more expensive." Are you going to be like, "Oh yes, let's go after that"? I mean, most people are not early adopters. They don't want to go, especially on something huge like driving my family around. Think of a home. Every brand new home is a prototype. If you think of any sort of product development, it usually goes through iterations where they'll do it. Okay, wait, we need to fix this. We need to tweak this. Okay, second generation, third generation. They work out the kinks. Well, guess what? Every brand new home is the first iteration. You don't get to do over, because that home has never been built with the same components by the same people on the same piece of land ever before, ever again. So technically, once your buyers start realizing that, okay, this is a prototype, I need to work out the kinks. Why do you think a builder gives a 1-year warranty? They know there's going to be issues. I was just actually talking to an agent yesterday, and we were talking about just how, because we had an inspection, and there were some things that, not that we missed, but we didn't catch. There's a difference there, because just like there's a couch in front of something. We can't see that. We didn't catch it, but it's also not where we were really looking. And so we were talking about, he said, I worked in the claims department for this big builder for a long time. He says, and if you just looked at all of that, he's like, you'd think this builder was awful. Builders deal with, there's all kinds of stuff that come through. And it's like, if you just based your experience on the first generation of iPhone that if you ever had and said, yep, I'm never buying one again. Well, things get a lot better. And so, again, think of that concept of a prototype.
So what's iteration?
Just so basically, you don't get iterations. The iterations come with a warranty claim. They come back and fix it. Now your house gets a little bit better. So I always say, when someone, when I see on the schedule that there's a home inspection for a home that's between 2 and 5 years old, I know that those are the easiest inspections because most of the stuff happens in the first year. Everything after that is more just kind of coincidence, crazy stuff. After 5 years, then stuff starts to break down. But if it's going to break down, or if it wasn't installed right, you're going to usually find that in the first year. So, okay, we can keep going through. Number two objection is, this is the one that you probably heard the most, is, well, isn't the city going to inspect it? So some crazy things have happened in the last decade. There are now laws that the city is required to inspect a home, but they are not liable for anything. You can't go after the city. You can't sue the city for missing anything. They're not liable for anything, which I don't know how that all works out. Well, the builder's liable.
Yeah. They can sign a certificate of occupancy and not be liable for anything.
Yep.
We just finished our basement and went through the whole process. And so I met the city inspector to do the final sign off. It's a 2-bedroom. There's a closet with a washer and dryer in it, a bathroom, and the kitchen's right there on the walking. He came in, he saw that I was a realtor. My opinion. So he came in that door, he didn't even go into bedrooms. He didn't go turn on the tap water in the bathroom or run the water, or even look and open the closet and see the washer and dryer in there. He just talked. Like, he walked around the kitchen a little bit, but like, I was in complete shock. He just gave me final approval.
And if you think it's any different on any of these, so
that really is
and he didn't say good job, you did it well.
I thought he would at least like
inspect it. Yeah, plug a few things in, flip a few switches.
He came up for coffee and a donut and left.
So that my experience, of course, this was 20 years ago. We did an ADU, went through the whole process, and my brother, you know, he worked with my dad. He's more the contractor, and so he was helping me finish it. And he says, okay, we've got final inspection coming up, and I'm like, hey, we don't have the GFCI in the bathroom. He's like, I know. And so we did a few things, and I'm like, what? He's like, this is the game we play. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so basically the first inspector came by and, oh, you're missing a GFCI, writes it up. You failed inspection, you need a GFCI, and this part, you know, there was like something on the firewall, incomplete. He's like, okay, watch, this is how you play the game. So, okay, we fixed that. We scheduled the next inspection. And so he kind of found those two things. I'm done. It failed. Why am I going to keep inspecting? So he kind of failed those two items. He left. The next guy comes the next week, says, did you get the GFCI? Did you fix that firewall? And it was signed. So all of that other stuff never even got looked at. And that's, you know, my brother building in California, building in Montana. He's like, this is the game we play. So again, not to badmouth the city, but at the same time, where like a home inspector, I'm doing maybe 2 inspections a day. A city inspector might be having to hit 20 or 30 of those in a day. He doesn't have time to be checking every outlet and looking at everything.
Yeah, but she said he checked nothing.
And that's...
Well, after they certified, like...
Yeah, they actually have to go through... Yep. Okay, so just know, so that's the other thing too with building inspection, is they are at certain phases of the process, and there's often nothing to go back. And so a good example is, you know, there is so many pieces and things to project manage a house being built. And you have concrete lined up, and you have plumbers lined up, and this has to get done this day because they don't get it this day, they're on another job, and that's going to delay. So there's all these pieces. And so you have a situation where they come out and they check all the forms. They're like, yeah, you're good for concrete. Concrete's coming next thing. It's 5 o'clock. You're like, hey, wait a minute. Isn't there supposed to be a bathroom right here? Yeah, quick, hurry and run that plumbing over there before they pour the concrete. You think they're going to go, wait, stop everything, get the city back out here to make sure that we got this plumbing line. So things like that can happen. The only lawsuit that I've been involved in 18 years, they were suing the builder and we got drug into it. But one of kind of the big things is when we were doing the inspection, they had a ton of the floor joists and they were all kind of weird. And I asked them, like, what's going on here? Like, oh, well, when they were building the house, they had the stairway going up from the basement upstairs. It was supposed to be this way, and they put it this way. So they had to move the stairs to kind of open everything, and they had to redo all the floor joists. Well, okay, I just had tucked that away. Okay, that's great. I remember that. Later on, she moves in. There were so many problems. You know, the sewer line got disconnected, sewer backed up, fireplace wasn't installed. The handrails on the outside were rated for interior, not exterior, so they're all rusted after 2 weeks. You know, all these problems. She's suing the builder. And I said, you know, hey, remember that whole thing with this wall that was, I said, you should have someone see if the footing was where the old wall and now the new footing, is there even a footing under this wall? Because it was a bearing wall. Yeah, sure enough, there was no footings underneath that slat. So major issues because there's no going back, and it's not a cumulative inspection, it's a point inspection. So again, isn't it already inspected? Yeah, to call a home inspection and a building code inspection, it's kind of like, well, my house is listed on the MLS with a realtor or on KSL. They're both listed, right? Yeah.
Can I chime in?
Yes.
So something that we've had happen multiple times is we do something, inspector comes out to look at it, and there'll be one small thing or two small things. And they don't want to go through the process of writing up as a failure. Hey, can you fix this and this? Yeah, we'll make sure I get it. Okay, cool. Here's your pass. And we're good contractors, and we're gonna do those things. But not every contractor is good, and it's a lot cheaper and a lot faster. Just go, oh, we passed. Why do we need to do that? We're done.
Yeah, it's good enough.
And the home inspector doesn't want to come back out and waste his time for two little things.
Yeah. They'll just say
and for new construction, a lot of times you have your contractor, there's a bunch of people working for him. He now has to call his crew back out there to do it. He's the one there for the inspection. He has to call his entire crew back out there, pay them for 3 hours to fix something that's going to take 15 minutes. He doesn't want to do that.
Yeah. So lots of just cut corners.
Doesn't just somewhere else have to wait for another inspection if it's supposed to come back.
Sometimes there is some cost in re-inspecting. If it was like the builder screwed up, I mean, your original building permit is for prepays certain number of inspections. So yeah, there is some additional cost. It's usually on the builder. So yeah, it's cutting into profit.
What was your question?
If there's more costs to have someone come back out. So if we can avoid having more inspections, it's going to.
I think it's what he said. The schedule's tight.
And it is a lot of scheduling.
It's the city that gets that extra money, or the county, whoever it is, not the inspector.
Yeah.
The inspector gets paid for the day.
Oh.
So now he's just got one more thing to try to cram in tomorrow because.
So you're saying point inspections, just inspect this and clear.
Yeah, so we're just here to inspect the forms before they pour the footings. Footings are done. Now we're going to do the wall. So we're just going to check the forms for the wall. Okay, now we're just going to check and make sure it's ready for drywall. And so they're not going back.
You are freaking us out. How do you pass an inspection and there's no cement footing under a bearing wall?
So number 3 is it's a reputable contractor. And this goes back to what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Who builds the house? The contractor? No, it's all the subs. And so you don't know who's actually doing the work.
New construction passing positive program. And because of the construction, one of the contractors were
smoking meth. Yep.
Smoking meth.
Yeah, you guys, I heard Steve say something, Ann, meth mom. Ann is awesome. Ann and I dealt with a positive meth house.
A brand new positive meth.
Yep.
Because the subcontractor's not going to live there. There's nothing to tie him to it.
Yep, and meth lets you work long hours and be really happy doing it. So, so on that note, yeah, so meth and mold are the two big ones that we've started getting more requests, and I'm surprised at even how much mold testing comes up positive and brand new. You know, we had the most recent one tested high for mold. It ended up being that there wasn't any problem. It was just there was still a lot of mold because big unfinished basement. They must have had a bunch of their just construction and nail boxes and cardboard, and and they had just cleaned it all out because, yeah. But still, there was high levels of mold in the home that had that not been cleaned out, those spores get settled elsewhere throughout the house and can start to cause problems. So
you're saying that subcontractors are not necessarily clean?
Oh, geez. My buyers just got a new house, and if their daughter hadn't had allergic to like everything, literally, I don't think they would have had them. And she asked me, she goes, "This is a new house, so I don't really need to do that." I was like, on the contrary, and I'm warning you of what will come up. And so I just got quiet because it was too funny, but there were like empty beer cans, in our bottles, there were like Taco Bell trash,
In the vents,
from it being.
Yeah.
All this stuff. Yeah, I took my son's bathroom and took the vent off, the cover off, and there was smashed beer cans and there was a bunch of cigarette butts, all things.
Half-eaten cheeseburgers.
Why are you allergic to a garbage can? Oh my gosh, you are
so reputable contractors.
Please get out here, Jared.
Okay.
Are you past tile and floor damage? Okay.
Here we go. Tile and floor damage. So we're just going to go through some of the things we do find. And now you see why. So these are the things that we often run into. Damages might be minor, they might be major. And again, you may not know. So we had one home, and I asked the client before the inspection, anything you want me to pay attention to? Well, yeah, there's this weird little squeak in the kitchen. Okay, great. I'll take a look at it. And so, yep, sure enough, you get it's like, oh, it's an unfinished basement. So I'm like, I'm going to go underneath and see. I go underneath and I start looking and I'm like, oh, big, huge bearing wall, big, huge beam. And the HVAC guys had cut the beam down the middle to run their ductwork through. So there's nothing holding this beam. They kind of like tacked some 2x4s to kind of hold it. So that was an extreme case. Again, builder is going to take care of it, but it was one of those where, yeah, you might not have found it until much later.
But if it was a finished basement, you didn't have access to it.
The finished basement, you wouldn't even know. Tile work. Another thing too, and this is kind of the other side of getting an inspection, is if you have that really nitpicky buyer, as much as it shouldn't be this way, every problem they have with the home, they're going to come back to you. They're going to complain, why did you sell me this house? And again, that's not your problem, but unfortunately, that's just how things work. And so there are a lot of things too that the home inspection can help put things in perspective. Like this grout. Yeah, the grout in a shower shouldn't be cracking. But it's also not going to be the end of the world because this isn't what provides the waterproof barrier. There's a membrane underneath. Right. And so little cracks in the foundation, that's totally normal. And so the inspector can also provide that logic reasoning to kind of ground your clients so that they know, okay, no, this is normal, this is typical. And they're not, oh man, I bought this house and how could you sell me, this builder, blah, blah, blah. So that can also help.
Do you differentiate? I've seen some. This is a big deal, and these are a big deal.
So yeah, so we try to summarize. Okay, these are the things that if I were buying the house, this is probably what I'd at least have a discussion with the builder and say, hey, let's talk about these things. This doesn't seem normal. Right. Where then there's a lot of other things that are like, yeah, technically this isn't right. So like one that every inspection, because that's the style right now. You have the siding, the concrete board siding, hardy plank siding, and then they'll do stucco around the rest. Well, stucco manufacturers, siding manufacturers say that our products can't touch. So, so it'll go around, you'll have this wood trim, and then you have stucco right up to it. It looks nice, but technically it's supposed to have a gap with the big sealant, so there's expansion and contraction. So technically that's a failure by any manufacturer guideline. We're going to point it out, but we're going to say, but everyone does it this way. No one does it the way you're supposed to. So take it as it is. And the reason why we try to point out all that stuff as inspectors is because we get thrown under the bus all the time by opportunistic contractors. So you get the painter to come out and he's like, wow, look at this crack right here. Oh man, I can't believe your home inspector didn't tell you this is totally wrong. Well, yeah, it's wrong, but it's also what every other home, but homeowner doesn't know that. And they think, oh no, now I got to have someone come in and they've got to repair all this because it's been done wrong. So
Why would contractors throw you?
because we're an easy scapegoat because we should have caught it.
You should catch everything.
That's the assumption. All right. Okay, it's kind of hard to see. This is not brand new construction, but this is the type of stuff that we try to find during new construction. This is your condensation line. Water doesn't flow uphill, so that is never going to drain very well. And that's what it looks like after a year of condensation leaking down through and causing problems. So a lot of times the home inspection is going to find and catch some of these things. I did a really good friend of mine. We did his inspection, and all of the flue, the PVC flue going up through the whole thing, they had forgot to you dry fit it all together and get everything. They forgot to come back and glue it all. So none of the flue, none of the pipes were all glued together. This was a fun one. This was a house in Alpine, brand new house. Start at the top, fill up the big jetted tub, run the shower, run the dishwasher. I get down to the basement and whoo, there's a flood. And it turns out that when they were doing the final landscaping and grading, the sewer line going out to the street got compacted and sheared off. So the sewer line just, so that, I mean, you caught it, it got fixed. Can you imagine if you would have found that after you're moving in and it's not just all the clean water from running through, you know, the tub and everything. So sometimes it's catching those things before they're a major problem.
You think that'd be a major problem to sever a sewer line?
Just a little bit, especially when it's sewage instead of water coming in. Water leaks in just areas, you know, this is a common leak up around the flue. We look and see what the flashing looks like. Are things sealed? Water coming in from basements. Because we see so many homes at all stages of their lives, a lot of times we can look at something and say, oh, I know what this is going to look like in 5 years. And we can talk about that with clients. So again, it's not just, hey, here's the problems, but let me educate you on your home so that you can get the most out of it. It's another common one, all these little caps, because people aren't using a ton of the plumbing during construction. And so once we start running stuff, we can find small little leaks that you might not notice until after you've moved in and you start running everything a lot more. Siding defects. Every siding manufacturer has specific requirements for how things get installed. You know, like this siding manufacturer says every nail needs to be flush. It can't go through it, and it has to be, you know, so these are little defects. If that's the only thing on the whole house, I'm not going to make an issue of it. But when you start to see, you know, 10% of the nailing pattern looks like that, it's going to be a problem. It may void warranties if there's a bigger problem down the road. Grading issues. Oh, there's another key word. So again, grading and drainage issues. Brick should not be covered up with soil. You know, brick is porous, water can get through there. So, and we see that sometimes to meet grade and sometimes to, like the one that I think is always interesting is there'll be a big porch and code says if it's over 30 inches, you have to have a handrail. Well, if it was like 36 inches, they start shoving all this extra landscaping up around the pool. Oh no, now we're under 30 inches. We don't need to put a handrail. And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Grading, this was, again, brand new house.
Have you ever inspected a home that had no issues?
A couple times. This basement, there was water in the basement. And a lot of it was just because so much water was just sitting right here and not getting down in. I mean, you look at the AC, it's like buried. That's just going to rust out within a few years. Some roofing examples, you know, just, you know, things don't get nailed off.
Higher quality house, you could tell by the window though.
Yeah, this was actually the model home. Just a tip: model homes and parade homes definitely need an inspection.
Rain gutter isn't even attached to the
Yeah. So a model home, people are like, oh, it's the model home. It's going to be the best. No, that's usually the one where the most corners were cut because we got to hurry and get this one showing so we can sell the rest of them. So, yeah. And then it's sat, a home sitting vacant is really hard on a lot of stuff. And so you have well, it's 2 years old, but no one's ever lived in it. It's like brand new. Ooh, that's It's like buying a used car that's been sitting in the driveway for 5 years. It's gonna have issues. Yeah, it's got 2,000 miles on it. Yeah, it's been sitting for 5 years. We're gonna need new tires. We're gonna need to wash out. That's kind of the same concept with a home, like a parade homes are the other ones. Yeah, we've had parade homes. We did one where all the decking nails require. I think I have a picture with decking stuff. Oh, we're getting ahead. Anyway, decking have really specific nails that they're supposed to use. They're not supposed to rust. They're supposed to be a certain diameter. Anyway, they'd use siding nails to build the whole deck. Siding nails are really tiny, really, yeah, whole different. We had another one where it had a beautiful fireplace, but it was just a facade. Nothing had been connected, no flue, no gas, nothing. Again, because you're trying to meet these deadlines and corners get cut. Missing flashings.
Go back.
So,
oh dear.
Tar, I mean, when you see patching like this on a brand new house, that's a huge red flag.
What?
That you've already had repairs that you've had to do. You've already had leaks probably. Yeah, you shouldn't need to be patching something brand new. All right, we're gonna kind of run out of time. This is another common thing. Like the classic example is, hey, builder, we wanted a light above our master tub. Oh, you're right. Let's go move all this insulation. The electrician comes in, runs a new light. Okay, we're done. Who came back to fix the insulation? No one. So we see that all the time.
Do you fix it?
Should. Oh, we don't know.
Like people with not very much skill to do this, and nobody goes up after to make sure they did their job.
So this is my brother's house. This was back, I don't know, it's been like 10, 15 years. There was like 3 or 4 inches of insulation. So he negotiated. The seller said, oh yeah, we'll hire someone. He's like, will you go back and just make sure they did it? So they were supposed to install it to 11 inches. And there was even the invoice on the counter. This is an 8-inch screwdriver. That's after they reinstalled more insulation. So
just make sure there's 11 next to the entrance.
Yeah, just as long as, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Gaps in the ductwork, disconnected ductwork.
Oh.
All right, we got to keep going through. So this is what I was talking about where, sometimes they have to go back and change things and no one ever goes back to re-inspect. And so that joist gets cut. This is what I was talking about. Even just a little bit of damage like this, technically that is a failure and has to be re-engineered. And they may say, yeah, you're fine. But again, you still have to have an engineer look at any sort of damage like that.
Going back, they're not going to get paid more. Is that why they're just saying forget it?
Yeah, a lot of times it's, yeah, you don't get paid for rework. These should have brackets, truss hangers. These are truss hangers, but they are for like 2x4, not engineered wood, so it's the wrong kind of bracket. These brackets should be installed with a nail in every hole. Oh, there's our last keyword. Again, missing brackets.
Is that a load bearing? Was that a beam?
Yeah, so this is some of this. Which one? This one?
Yeah.
No, that's just a deck.
Oh.
The deck joist. This one's kind of hard to see what it is, but you think, okay, there's nothing wrong. Look at the length of the extension cord to where the outlet is. You think, oh, the builder just unplugged it so people aren't messing with the garage door. No, you have to reinstall a new, cable for your garage door opener. Technically, code says you can't use extension cords as a permanent fixture. So technically, when this is done properly, they'll have an outlet that will have some conduit coming down to another outlet, or you take the motor apart and you install a longer cord. Poor water flow. Remember, this was back when the market crashed before, you had a lot of builders that just went under, and banks would buy up these homes and they'd hire someone to go back out and finish the house so they could get it sold. And a lot of times you didn't know where did they actually end. And we had one house that no hot water to one of the bathrooms. Just okay. That was that same picture we saw earlier. Again, just incomplete stuff. We run into that when a home has been vacant it doesn't mean you can just pick right up and start finishing the house. A lot of times there's some rework that has to get done. Missing electrical components. All right, this is just extreme. So it was just then there's just crazy things. This is another inspector like sent these over. This was in the Midwest. In a lot of rural places, you only have like 3 or 4 inspections, and so all kinds of crazy stuff can happen in between.
Is that a 90?
It's like yeah, it's pretty steep here. Yeah, so I mean, but you're bottoming out. Yeah, so we actually had a home. Was it? It was. I can't remember if it was Springville, but it was one of those where during the inspection, the client is like, "Okay, we either need to cancel or I need to get a new car because their car wouldn't fit up the driveway the way that it was." You know, so there's other things to consider before you go spend money on the appraisal and the. Because they can't just go buy a new car, right? That's not what the big thing. Yeah, don't. Okay, just to wrap up, because we're out of time. Just as far as the inspection goes, the best time for the inspection is right around blue tape. That's really the best time. Do know that not all builders are amiable, favorable for home inspections. Some of them make us jump through a million hoops. There's one builder that makes us sign something, but it has to be a wet signature on their form. They want us to print it out, sign it, hand deliver it to the buyer for them to wet signature. So it's a big national one. It starts with a D. There is another one. There's another one that is local, and they're like, sure, do the inspection. We just need the inspector to sign this form. We get it, and it says the inspector shall not open any electrical panels, go on the roof, go in the attic, operate any appliances. Okay, what do you want me to do? That one starts with an A.
Seriously.
I'm trying to think what some of the other ones are.
Then, because it's your reputation.
Well, we let the client know that what they're getting, and most of them will say, I'm closing on Tuesday. How about you come do the inspection on Wednesday? Because, I mean, now they've closed, but at least they're still getting the inspection. They haven't moved in. We can still, and they have their year warranty. So it does make things a little more tricky, but yeah. Well, issues is relative. I mean, what people think. I would say that in general, I am going to find more things on a brand new house than a 5 to 20 year.
You're kidding.
I will find more issues.
It's like I work for
a lot of times it's not anything that needs.
It's minor.
I would say that it's not common for us to find any big things, but we do find a lot of little stuff that the builder's like, oh yeah, that's like one of the ones that's 70% of them, the door latches don't line up. So you go close the bedroom door and it doesn't latch. You know, little things like that all the time. Or weather stripping isn't adjusted right, so there's a gap under the door. There's all those little things that for the most homeowners, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, let's get it done. Or it's a good little punch list to turn over the builder, but nothing like major. I just did one last week for my cousin. The home was 2 years old, but it was done by a builder who installed their own radon system, and they installed it in backwards. I don't even know how you do that. But instead of sucking air, it was blowing.
Oh my God.
You know, and so there's little things like that I do see more like cut corners where it's not so much the builder. So people always ask, like, what builders should I avoid? I don't know. If I knew who the subs were, I'd say don't use a builder that uses this sub because I'm sure there's a pattern there. But I've seen great and I've seen horrible from almost every major builder. I mean, yeah, we did last year we had it was a DR Horton. It was a decent home, but my inspector was like, hey, check this out. and he's up on the roof, and all of the homes in the subdivision had like these little kickouts. And he's like, look at this. And the house that he was inspecting, they didn't put any shingles on that little kickout. I was like, yeah, that sucks. He's like, no, this sucks. And he like takes a picture, and all of them on the street, they'd forgot all of them. And those other ones were already people living there. People moved in, and
What do you mean a kick out?
like a little bay window that has like a little teeny roof.
And they didn't.
And that part, because it was like pretty flat, you couldn't see it unless you're up above. It just had the tar paper. Yeah, like three houses in a row. No, they just forgot. This total forgot. And so, you run into a lot of that kind of stuff that the builder's like, I mean, it's not like there's any, you can't blame the builder. You sub, yeah, the sub. But that's the thing that we're trying to help builders understand is that if it's a good, reputable inspector, it's to their benefit to work with the inspector because, like that roof job, now it's on his warranty budget.
Yes.
Where if he got it done before closing, he could go like, builder, roofer, you're not getting your final payment until you finish the job. And so a lot of builders, we actually had a builder for a while that would have us go and pre-inspect all of his homes because he found that the $500 to $700 was more cost effective than the warranty down the road. And it helped him out a lot when the buyer would call and say, hey, I need you to come and recaulk my kitchen. He's like, that's not a warranty item. That's called homeowner maintenance. Yeah, of course, that's what you'd say, trying to get out of warranty. And so it was easy for us to have that kind of information in the report, and it saved him the reputation of not trying to avoid a warranty, but actually something legitimate. This isn't a warranty claim. So again, if you work with builders, that's also something that if you have a reputable, there is one builder that requires, I need a copy of your auto insurance policy, your workman's comp policy, and your liability policy. And it was like, it's ridiculous. All these different hoops. The subs, I know. And they want all of that before we can do the inspection. And he was talking to one of the reps. He's like, I know it's a total. He's like, but we've had like multiple times where a home inspector has burned down the house. And it's like, okay, I get it.
What's the name or initials?
I can't remember on that one which one. It's another big national, but I can't remember.
So we have to check the subcontractor.
So my advice is, if you're working with a buyer, start the process for the home inspection well in advance, whether they think they're going to do it or not. There's another builder. Which one is it? Their approval I've seen take up to 3 months. And it's the one that we have to submit all the insurance. It goes to Colorado. So whichever one's based in Colorado. I've seen it like, okay, you're approved for the inspection. I reach out to the buyer's agent, like, yeah, we closed 2 months ago.
Ooh, yeah.
And I've had a number of other agents call and say, you know what, we talked about inspections. They said they didn't want to, but now they do, but now it's too late. With some of the builders' contracts, they waive that.
Yeah.
It's like in their contract.
What do you suggest I have home buyers divorce, buy a house with cash? They look at 5 houses, buy one that weekend to get away from their ex. And they forego the home inspection. I'm like, I don't want this coming back on me. It's like, I want you to get a home inspection.
That's why we have that.
Yeah.
If it's a situation like that, or a situation where you have somebody who didn't, like, oh no, maybe I should have an inspection. Can't you go in anyway?
Yeah, so we do warranty inspections a lot. So especially a year ago when, just hurry and get and buy a house and move in,
yes.
Waive all your contingencies.
Yes.
Well, now we're at month 10 and we found some things. We'll go and do warranty inspection, which is basically a whole home inspection, but we're kind of geared.
That is.
Right. And so now we've looked at everything and
Oh, I like that. Post-closing.
So if you've worked a lot with buyers, it's a great way to reach out to them again, say, hey, so I've had a few agents, let's put together some sort of marketing of, hey, Pillar to Post is offering this discount to my agents. If you bought a new home in the last, and so we usually say between months 6 and 10 is the right time to get that process started. So warranty. Right. And then here's a list of stuff. You turn over to the builder. Sometimes the builder's like, oh my gosh, look at all this nitpicky stuff. But then if they're looking at it like, oh great, here's one list. I do this and I'm done.
Like, is that you think people would be trying to think of, they would probably notice most of those things on their own, do you think?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow.
What you're saying.
So, can I say something? For that, this is not a new construction.
Oh, okay, just exists.
Should they, after like they lived there for 16 months, go home inspection if they forego, like if they didn't.
First, yeah, we've done a lot of those, especially during that whole period when everybody's waiving everything. We did a lot of post-close inspections. And then home warranty company, I mean, if there's stuff that's a warranty claim, they can go after it. It does make it harder because now you're like, well, is it pre-existing? I don't know. It does make things a little bit harder, but yeah, we did a lot of those post-claim, and we have a lot of people that will just say, hey, I just want to know, we've been in our house for 10 years. What are we dealing with? And so we do kind of just a homeowner maintenance inspection. And so that's something else that we're seeing more and more people. That's like, wow, I can't afford a new home. Let's make the most of what we've got. And so we
3% interest rate. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
I mean, during the 10 years, what do we need to?
That would be
yeah. And so we can help. And here's a perfect example of that. It was an older lady. Her husband had died. She had this huge house, all of her kids, and they're like, Mom, you need to move out. It's too big of a house, but it had sentimental value. She wanted to stay there. And then like there was a little bit of settling and had this crack. And so of course her kid's like, oh, see, it's gonna fall down. And so she's like, okay. So she hired us and we went through and no, the crack, it's cosmetic, patch it up, you're good. You don't see, there's not major foundation issues. But what we did catch is they had wired her air conditioner totally wrong. This was like a 2-year-old house. And one of them, this was in March, her air conditioner, one of them wasn't even gonna work come summer. And the other one, it was like black and charred, about ready to kind of catch fire. And so even those cases, it was like, okay, you're like poster child. This is, older mom, single, doesn't know where to focus her energies, doesn't want to get ripped off by all these other people coming in saying she needs to do this. We were able to talk about options because this room gets too hot, this room gets too cold. Okay, talk to an HVAC guy. You don't have any insulation over here, and so that's a good strategy that we do with a lot of homeowners.
Where you can go back
yep.
and contact them.
And especially during the slower months, if you guys want to put together a strategy of, hey, I mean, we're willing to discount some inspections, especially when it's like, okay, guess what? I don't have anything on the schedule for tomorrow for John. Doing a discounted inspection to kind of work out a marketing, those are a lot easier than, so yeah, we'd love to figure out some marketing options that way.
Good idea.
So sorry, you guys online. I know we've gone over, but any other questions?
No, we're afraid of the answers.
I was just gonna say, like, experience before I knew anything.
Yeah.
You would think that they would know, they would find out within the first year, whatever's gone off. Doesn't always happen. Like, we built a brand new home, and like after 3 years, we realized that like our plumbing, luckily our basement's not finished, but our plumbing runs uphill to go out to our septic tank. And like we have a great big long pipe where it sloshes, like we can do the sloshing.
Yeah.
So we had a master plumber come out and check it, and it's going to cost us probably $18,000 to replace everything.
To redo all that.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, we're doing what we can. My husband went and bought like one of the
rotor.
The rooters. That's the electric one.
Yeah.
That just powers through. Like,
kind of keep plugging through things.
Yeah. Every now and again, we like pull the drain up out of my shower and shove it down there and just make sure your buyers don't throw on something. Well, that'd be great. No, we will fix it before we finish.
So on that,
you can give the certificate of
So on that note, that's something that we've started seeing a lot more that's not in this presentation is sewer scopes on brand new inspections. Mm-hmm. So we did one in Eagle Mountain. We got out there. It was the first home that was completed in this street. The whole street was backed up. I mean, it's just, who knows what the major sewer issues. So that one failed. I got called out to a home in Salem to do an inspection, and it was a sewer inspection and full of gravel. So when they were doing the excavation and stuff, a bunch of gravel got into the sewer line. And I was talking to her and I'm like, yeah, it's a good thing you did this. She's like, I'm so glad I did. And the only reason I even thought of it is a few weeks before we did our inspection, I was talking to my friend. We were going over to their housewarming party. And on the way to the housewarming party, she calls and says, party's canceled, sewer just backed up in their brand new house. So she's like, so I was, and I'm like, okay, yeah, so there's 2. I leave that job to go do a mold test down in Payson, and I get there and I show up at the house and it's like brand new house. I'm like, okay, so what's going on? Why are we doing a mold test? Oh, because last week our sewer backed up on our brand new house. So it's like 3 right in a row. So we have been doing a lot more with new construction, and I am amazed at how. And it's those things where if there's a little belly or a little slow thing, you're not going to catch it for first few years until stuff starts to build up, and then it's like, wow, why is this not? Yeah, and so that's another big one that we're seeing more of is sewer scopes, meth, and mold with new construction aren't so crazy.
Wow.
So.
Huh. Well, on that note.
Tana, sorry, this is gone late.
Halloween, Jared.
Thank you.